Michael Popok with the new Legal AF YouTube channel. Take a moment and free subscribe and help our drive to 200,000 subscribers in our first 3 weeks of existence. We sit at the intersection of law and politics and bring you commentary without blowing smoke or sunshine. Let's talk about some new reporting. I thought a really great piece I want to dive deep into in the New York Times, written by Emily Bazelon and Matt Schwartz. It's on the Sunday version. It's got a scary cover. Could he lock them up? And you know who the he is in that. It's Donald Trump. Judge Ludig, Michael Ludig, who's a frequent guest on Midas Touch and with me in interviews, who founded an organization that's trying to stop the overthrow of our democracy called the Society for the Rule of Law, which is comprised of conservatives and libertarians and others who want to protect the Constitution from illiberal forces, to paraphrase their slogan. Michael Ludig has come out and said, and as being a chief critic of Donald Trump, that one of the major ways that he corrupted democracy is by normalizing that his conduct and behavior, Donald Trump's, in attacking judges and prosecutors, jurors and grand jurors, members of the FBI and Department of Justice, and destabilizing all of these entities is it's to paraphrase the description of the devil, it is his greatest accomplishment so far, if you want to call it that. What the article focuses on, what I want to focus on this particular hot take is, could Donald Trump implement his plan to, as he said recently, quote, "When I win, those people who cheated," his enemies list, "will be prosecuted and sentenced to long prison sentences." To which he had in his rabble, his red meat crowd, a cheer went up. We heard this in 2016 with "lock him up" or "lock her up" and "lock her up." And we saw many versions of Donald Trump attempting to do this in 2016, when he fired James Comey, the FBI director, when he tried to corrupt the Department of Justice, when he ordered his White House counsel to fire the independent counsel, special counsel, then Robert Mueller, only when Don McGahn, the White House counsel for Donald Trump, said, "I'm going to quit if you do that. You can't do that," did he stop. Donald Trump doesn't respect any of the norms. And there are norms and there are internal policies developed by the Department of Justice after our last criminal president, Richard Nixon, post-Nixon, including in 1978, when the Department of Justice developed policy so that they wouldn't be influenced by outside forces that are political, including their own president of the United States and his own party. Department of Justice being independent is a good thing. But Donald Trump, this is a 3 or 4 step process, and I think was outlined well in the article. The first thing he's got to do is implement their unitary president doctrine. You hear it a lot, and adherents to it include Supreme Court justices like Gorsuch and Thomas and Alito. They want to see all the power embodied in the presidency. They don't want to have anything. They don't want to have this other side power or independent power within their 3 co-equal branches of government. They want the president to have all the Article 2 power that he's entitled to and more. It's always been a slight bit of a contradiction in our society, in our co-equal tripartite branches of government, that the Justice Department sits in the executive branch. A lot of people that I've run into them on the streets and in conversation, especially since I started doing Legal AF, especially from our colleagues in different countries, they said, "Well, your Department of Justice is with your judiciary, right? It's lined. The judges and the lawyers are all lined together." No, it's the executive branch. And so the Department of Justice, on paper, unless it had these rules and regulations, and we saw this in the Nixon era, can become a tool and weaponized by the sitting president. He has to remove some structural barriers that went up since 1978 and clear them out as part of this unitary president doctrine. But that's what's going to happen. So step 1 for Donald Trump is to pick an attorney general who's going to be a bootlicker and a sycophant and is not going to protect the American society from Donald Trump's worst instincts in his attack of the rule of law. We could probably think of a few right here on this hot take. Rudy Giuliani. Just because you're disbarred Doesn't mean you can't be attorney general. Doesn't say that in the Constitution. In fact, attorney general is not mentioned in the Constitution. Alina Habba, anybody? Jeff Clark, who was acting attorney general for 20 minutes or so and had a role in the attempted takeover and coup against America. But these, and if it's not them, it's somebody else just like them that's been handpicked by Leonard Leo of the Federalist Society and delivered up to Donald Trump on a silver platter to pick. It'll be somebody, again, who will not stand up to Donald Trump and speak truth to power and protect the American people, won't be the firewall for our democracy. Step one, pick that kind of attorney general. Step two, work with that attorney general to replace all of the deputy attorney generals, assistant attorney generals, department heads within the Department of Justice. A complete overthrow and do-over and makeover of the Department of Justice. Get in those positions loyalists coming out of Project 2025, lawyers, many of them, hopefully, and get them into the Department of Justice. Now you've got a head who's basically Trump serving as his own head of the Department of Justice with a puppet underneath, the replacement of all these department heads and division heads with loyalists. And then you get rid of, in the DOJ policy manual, you get rid of all of the self-policing rules and policies that have kept the Department of Justice independent since after the Hoover period and Richard Nixon. So at least after 1978, where they've said, we don't want any external pressures on us, and we have ways. So there's no direct and not a lot of direct meetings at all currently between the president, the office of the president, and the attorney general. I mean, think of it. Can you think of any? So in other words, even though he's a cabinet member, he's the attorney general, even though his boss is technically Joe Biden, Merrick Garland does not meet for a weekly lunch or tea with Joe Biden to go over, like, bring out your case list. Tell me who you're thinking about prosecuting. Let's go over it. But it will, if Donald Trump is restored to power. He will regularly meet with his Department of Justice head. He will give them marching orders. He will have them eliminate from the rule book, from the Department of Justice manual, any rule or restriction on the interaction between the Trump White House and the Department of Justice, probably the Trump campaign and the Department of Justice. So that will become a unitary president in that way. It's be the total absorption of the Department of Justice and the weaponization of it, eliminating any of the internal self-policing rules and regulations. So that's two. Three, start up phony investigations. We see a trial run of this by how Donald Trump has manipulated and ordered MAGA congresspeople like Jim Jordan, Oversight Committee or the Judiciary Committee or the House Rules Committee, whatever, going after Hunter Biden and his, and sending around, junk pics to everybody, going after the Biden crime family. Where did that go? Going after the head of Homeland Security. We see a version of this. But could you imagine if instead of being in the hands of Congress that can't jail people, it's in the hands of the Department of Justice with no one to call them off? I mean, sure, people of good conscience will quit. Lower level, a deputy assistant to the whatevers of the Department of Justice will quit and protest, but they'll implement it. Stephen Miller or Jason Miller, one of the Millers, Stephen Miller, who heads up as a non-lawyer something called America First Legal. He's running a law firm without a law license. The states regulating bar admission should look into that and the unlicensed practice of law. He'll be in there. He'll be setting policy for the Department of Justice as a non-lawyer. So now you got these prosecutions, again, going up with no pushback against the enemies list. And who is the enemies list? Well, it's easy. Donald Trump has told you who the enemies list is. I mean, just some of the names that are on this cover. I was looking hard to see if like Ben and me would be here or the Mysalis brothers. Not yet. Fonnie Willis is on here. James Comey, Hunter Biden, again, Letitia James, New York Attorney General, Andrew McCabe, former FBI deputy director, who said that Donald Trump is a Russian asset. Arthur Engoron, judge, presiding over the $500 million civil fraud case. Robert Mueller, who was a special counsel appointed by Donald Trump's own Department of Justice related to the Russia interference. Kamala Harris, why not? Joe Scarborough, sure. Alvin Bragg, Manhattan District Attorney. Eric Holder, former Attorney General. Merrick Garland, current Attorney General. Joe Biden, former President. Bill Clinton, former President. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. For some reason, Marco Rubio is on here. He should sleep with one eye open. Anthony Fauci, why not? Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, let's have them share a cell, according to Donald Trump. That's a scary list. And he said it. He said he's going to go after, Donald Trump said out loud, I'm not making this up, voters, attorneys, election workers, elected workers, all within that, I'm sure the media, members of the media, members of podcasts that are pro-democracy. Maybe he'll put Michael Luttig in jail, or tried to. And just the threat that Donald Trump is telling people as a campaign platform that if he gets back into office, he's going to go after, with his weaponized Department of Justice, his enemies list, to put them away for, quote, long prison sentences, should send a chill down everybody's spine. If you were looking, let me speak now to the 5% that are still sitting on the fence with 30 days to go in this election. Get off the fence. If the fence is ringed around the protection of the Constitution, I'd all be in favor of it. But if the fence you're on is a fence of indecision, and you haven't heard enough through Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network, Legal AF, this YouTube channel, and other reporting like this, to have you make your decision to protect democracy and the rule of law, we don't just need the J. Michael Luttig, and former federal judges and conservatives to do it. Everybody should join the Society of the Rule of Law. That is what our country is based on. So you see the pattern. Starts with Trump gets in, guts and hollows out the Department of Justice, does the same thing with the FBI. Remember, the FBI works for the Department of Justice and works for Donald Trump. So the head of the FBI, of course, becomes a bootlicker for Donald Trump, somebody that he can trust, that passes his loyalty test. And we can think of a number of people there. Rudy Giuliani again, for head of the FBI, why not? A disgraced fallen man, could be rehabilitated by Donald Trump. Right now there is, as I've said this before in Legal AF and other places, there is a shadow government, a government in exile led by right-wing MAGA, just waiting and salivating to get back into office and be swept in with Donald Trump. They've been sitting in institutions and think tanks like the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society, and they meet regularly, and they produce their playbook for us, like Project 2025, which they're going to implement through Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just a vessel. They're going to be in control. Donald Trump's just a meat puppet. He's just a meat puppet. They're just joining with him because he's trying to save his ass from being prosecuted and being convicted and being jailed. So there is a perfect alignment. They need a puppet who is a populist that gets a group of people excited enough and scared enough to vote for him so they can sweep in all the crazy new laws. You should go read Project 2025. It will be you like separation of church and state, you'll have to leave, because that'll be totally eliminated under the next term for Donald Trump. It'll be the installation of Christian-based theocracy into our country. That's what's going to happen because it's in the book. I read it. And so we should, as a people, be very, very concerned and see it as a threat to our democracy in the truest sense by having a person who could be the president of the United States be effectively a turned foreign asset who can't be trusted, who has tremendous Achilles heels and vulnerability, financial being first among them, where foreign corruption and influence will come through him like a sieve without protection. On the other hand, somebody that's going to try to literally weaponize the Department of Justice, collapse it into his back pocket, and use it to do his political bidding and to go after his enemies. That, to the fence sitters, should be enough for you to vote for the other party and the other person. I'm going to continue to call out everything that we observe and follow up with those stories. One place, Legal AF MTN. I got great news for you. Free subscribe, help us build. Sure, that's great news for the channel. That's great news to assure you that this content's going to come to you uninterrupted and expand, which is what we're doing. We got Court Accountability Action, one of the leading organizations dedicated, pro-democracy organizations dedicated to ferreting out corruption in our federal judiciary system up to the Supreme Court, has come on board. And they'll be doing 3 or 4 hot takes. They have their own playlist right here on Legal AF MTN, doing a new show called Unprecedented with Dina Dahl and other guests, including hopefully J. Michael Ludick very soon, to talk about the United States Supreme Court, starting with this term, starting this week. For the rest of the term, we'll bring it to you there. And doing hot takes like this one at that intersection of law and politics on a regular basis. Only you can help us reach our goals. And I appreciate you being here with us. So until my next hot take, my next Legal AF, and everything, by the way, Legal AF, last note, everything Legal AF is right here for you on this one landing page for this channel. The hot takes, the after darks, the podcast, my content. Karen Freeman Agnifilow's come over and done work with us now. Dina Dahl is here. Anthony Davis in the future. You're going to love it. Free subscribe. Till my next hot take, it's Michael Popok, and I'm reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.